Lifting operations are inherently critical and dangerous. Even when proper training is conducted, equipment is properly maintained, employees conduct themselves in a safe manner, and other facets of the safety program are conscientiously attended to, accidents can still occur. The reason is that crane operations are primarily dependent on mechanical devices. These devices can and do fail. When this happens during a lifting event, the results can be catastrophic. You are the only controlling influence that can minimize the hazard. Your life literally is in your own hands. Dear friends and fellows, welcome to HSC Tutorial. We have started the series of lifting safety. This is video number 2 or the part 2 of lifting operations. I am your host Javed and you are watching Safety First. As usual, if you are new on this channel, kindly subscribe the channel. And if you find the video informative, then like, comment and share. Dear friends and fellows, let us discuss the essential principles for lifting operations. In part 1, we discuss the roles and responsibilities of management, employer, employees, supervisory staff, and the HSC department. And in short, about the lifting team. We also made a short introduction about the terms and definitions, those were relevant and related to lifting, slinging, and rigging. Today, in video number 2, we are starting with the essential principles of lifting operations. Element number 1 in the lifting operation is planning. A lift plan is required for every lift. If the lift deviates from the plan, make safe and stop the job. Hazard identification and risk assessment are an integral part of planning a lift. An assessment of the lift and determination of the lift method, equipment, and number of people required are critical to planning of the lift. How to control lifting operation that is hazardous and dangerous. One person in the lifting team shall be designated as the person in charge of the lifting operation. This appointed person shall review the lift plan and ensure that the required controls are in place and the lift is carried out following the plan. The appointed person ensures that the lifting team has tested and understood visual or other means of communication prior to the lift. All personnel involved in the lifting operation shall have their individual responsibilities clearly allocated and communicated. All personnel shall be kept clear of overhead loads and the areas of potential impact. Manual load handling shall not be used to stop a swinging load and shall only be performed below shoulder. Step number 3, that is equipment. What type of equipment shall be used for the lifting purpose? Equipment shall be fit for its intended purpose, operating conditions, and shall be designed to a recognized standard. Equipment shall be fitted with appropriate safety devices. Any safety devices installed on lifting equipment shall be operational and not overridden. Dear friends and fellows, after planning, after ensuring the control measures, and after selecting the right equipment, inspection, maintenance, and the verification of certificates is also an essential principle for safe lifting operation. Equipment integrity shall be maintained, supported by an equipment register. Lifting devices and equipment shall undergo detailed, thorough examination by a competent person at least every 12 months and at least every 6 months or equipment used to lift people. All lifting devices and equipment shall be visually examined before every use. Now we are going to uncover the secrets of load integrity and stability. Load shall not exceed dynamic and or static capacities of the lifting equipment. The integrity and stability of loads shall be verified before start lifting. Remember, lifting of personnel shall be avoided unless the risk has been demonstrated as being as low as is reasonably practicable. Lifting of personnel shall be according to the specific personnel lift plan for that lift. Lifted personnel shall be properly secured with lanyards unless written procedures and risk assessment. Now, we are going to discuss the lifting team. Those are involved directly in the lifting operation. The most important person in the lifting team is lifting appointed person. Appointed persons shall undertake their specific roles and responsibilities with regards to the use of lifting equipment and lifting accessories by ensuring the following: appropriate planning of all lifting operations, that a lifting plan is prepared and regularly updated, provide advice and guidance to signaler, slinger, and lifting equipment operators on the identified safe system of work, that a schedule of common lifts is developed detailing the means of lifting common loads on the site, and develop procedure to ensure that where special lifts are undertaken, arrangements are in place to ensure that lifting operations can be carried out safely. There are some special duties of lifting appointed person. He must be familiar with the relevant parts of the project health and safety plan where the lifting operation is being carried out on a site where the construction is in progress. He is also responsible for assessing the lifting operation to provide such planning, selection of cranes, lifting accessories and equipment, instruction and supervision as is necessary for the task to be undertaken safely. This may include consultation with other responsible bodies if necessary, and ensuring that where different organizations are involved, they collaborate as necessary. This is the responsibility of the lifting appointed person to ensure that adequate inspection, examination, and maintenance of the equipment has been carried out. Lifting appointed person will ensure that there is an effective procedure for reporting defects and incidents and taking any necessary corrective action. Lifting appointed person will take the responsibility for the organization and the control of lifting operation. Lifting appointed person will ensure that the crane supervisor is fully briefed on the contents of the method statement that is related to lifting operation. Dear friends and fellows, now we will try to categorize the lifts. We will consider the factors those are required for lift categorization. To categorize a lift, the number one element that is most important is the lifting equipment. Employers shall ensure during the planning of lifting operations that consideration is given to the type of equipment that is required to carry out the lifting operations safely. The appointed person shall be consulted during the selection process, and the decision on the type of crane shall be based on the following factors: weight of the load, frequency and duration of the work, the working environment, which includes but not limited to ground conditions, access and restrictions, etc. Mobility of the crane. Will lifting operations be carried out in one place or several different locations? And the lifting radius. Secondly, Employers shall ensure that the selection of cranes is carried out following the principles of risk assessment, selecting the best option for each lifting operation based on the above factors. Second most important factor for lift categorization is loads and lifting arrangements. Loads can be in all shapes, sizes, and internal content, the center of gravity of which may not be in the center of the load. The dimensions, strength, and the method of use of the lifting arrangement, including the way it is attached to the load and the lifting equipment, in effect the lifting operation. In addition, the lifting of people requires special procedures and special equipment. These different loads present different hazards that need to be addressed by lift planners and all in the lifting team. Third important factor is lifting environment that can include wind, fog, the soil, ground condition, noise, and light, while the specific effects on offshore environments include vessel motion, movement and stability, weather, wind and sea tides, adjacent structures and vessels, seabed suction and dynamic loading. Dear friends and fellows, let us discuss the lifting environment, how the wind effect will adversely impact the lifting operation. In the event of extreme weather conditions, the lifting team may need to suspend the lifting operation until such time as it is safe to proceed. Although the safe workable wind speed varies from crane to crane, as a guide, the maximum wind speed at which lifting operations can take place is 10 meters per second, 22 miles per hour. In the event that man riding duties are required, the maximum workable wind speed reduces to 7 meters per second, 16 miles per hour. Please note that local conditions and the safety of personnel may dictate the crane supervisor and crane operator have to suspend lifting operations at a lower wind speed than specified in this method statement. In addition, lifting operations must stop during storms or when there is a risk of lightning strikes. Do you think the lifting team is a factor to consider? The lift categorization. Categorization of a lift needs to take into consideration all personnel involved and their competencies. This should also include the consideration of all aspects of the lift. Communication options shall also be considered. They could be visual and audible, with a number of people often operating different equipment, potentially each working in different environments. The factors listed above are not exhaustive, but are typical of those to be considered when categorizing the lift to a specific company procedure. Dear friends and fellows, now we will cover the inspection, testing, and maintenance part of the lifting equipment and lifting accessories. We will start with documentation. Number one, to identify items that were inspected. Number two, show the status of the inspected items. Number three, provide the signature of the inspector. Number four, show the date of inspection. And number five, file it and maintain it. Now, we are going to discuss inspection, testing, and maintenance requirements at the start of each shift. How to inspect the crane, how to test the crane, how to verify it is maintained by a HSC practitioner or a crane supervisor or a lifting appointed person or anyone who is designated to control and carry out a lifting operation. In the start of each shift, the individual must ensure, number one, to visually inspect all units of integrity, leaks, etc. Number two, check the operation of the crane, controls and movement. Number three, operate anti-hook till it actuates the upper limit switch. Number four, operate hoist and trolley brakes Ensure no excessive costing. Number 5, check the twisted, broken or kinked cables or chains. Number 6, observe correct drum spooling as the hook is raised. Number 7, inspect for the deformed, cracked or stretched hooks. Number 8, inspect for serviceable safety latches. Number 9, check for air or hydraulic fluid leakage. And number 10, check for load capacity, stenciling on both sides of unit. Keep remember, review the manufacturer specific inspection requirements. Those are mentioned in the manual. What items must be inspected in the monthly inspections? Number 1, visually inspect all critical items. Number 2, measure hooks for deformation or stretching. Number 3, inspect hooks for cracks, missing or broken parts. Number 4, measure lifting chains for excessive stretch, twisting, etc. Number 5, inspect for twisted, broken or kinked cables or chains. And number 6, follow any additional recommendations of the manufacturer in the periodic inspections. That is between 1 to 12 months. Inspector should inspect the chain or cable, electrification, brakes, railings, warning devices, reeving, hoist drives, limit switches, balance, end stops, hook condition, treble drives, couplings, controls, and the signage. But also keep in your mind that 12-month interval dependent on the environmental conditions, on the severity of service, and on the type of activity performed with such equipment. Above all, don't forget to review the manufacturer specific inspection requirements. Those are clearly mentioned in the manual. For new cranes, prior to initial use, cranes must be tested and inspected completely using the criteria applicable to periodic inspections. A report should be kept on file for future reference. For idle cranes, cranes that have been idle for a period that exceeds 6 months must be inspected and tested before being placed back in service using the criteria that applies to periodic inspection. Special attention should be given to the hook, lifting chain, and the wire rope. For altered cranes, all cranes that have been extensively altered or repaired must be completely inspected and tested. If load-sustaining parts have been altered or repaired, then a load test should be conducted to verify the rated load capacity of the crane. A report should be issued by a qualified person and kept on file for future reference. But during all the inspections, I will say again, an inspector should review the manufacturer's specific inspection guidelines or requirements. Those are mentioned in the operating manual. How to carry out load testing to a used crane. The test load cannot exceed 125% of the rated load unless otherwise recommended by the manufacturer. The hoist, trolley, and crane should be operated a number of times at various positions. The test load should be transported by the trolley and bridge over the full length of the crane. A report should be issued by the testing organization or company giving the conditions under which the system was load tested. Dear friends and fellows, as long as the preventive maintenance of the crane is concerned, you have to cover number 1, cleaning and lubricating the wire rope, cable, and the load chain. Number 2, adjusting the brakes. Number 3, checking and filling the gear cases to the proper level. Number 4, replacing any contaminated oils. Number 5, lubricating the bearings, gears, pinions, linkages, shafts, etc. Number 6, adjusting the operation of limit switches. Number 7, cleaning or replacing pitted or burned electrical contacts. Number 8, cleaning and replacing the air and fluid filters. And number 9, inspecting the operation of all controls and warning systems. For pre-operational tests, you have to ensure all emergency disconnects are known before any test. If you are not familiar with the crane's operation, get help. Ensure that the manufacturer's recommendations are followed. If you have a checklist, follow it. Inspect all electrical controls for proper operation. Check for obstructions in the travel path of the crane. Test all controls to determine proper operation. Observe for smooth operation of the components. Never unwind the spool completely. And lastly, check upper and lower limit switches. How to make inspection or testing of the hook prior to start lifting operation. Number 1, replace if deformation or cracks are found. Number 2, check for proper function of the safety latch. Number 3, inspect for twists for the plane of the unbent hook. Number 4, check for proper swivel. Number 5, hook repair is generally not recommended. Number 6, emergency hook repair must be performed only under competent supervision. And number 7, after any hook repairs, the hook must be load tested before being returned to the normal service. How to inspect ropes prior to start a lifting operation. Number 1, reduction in rope diameter. Replace if found. Number 2, broken or worn outside wires. Number 3, corroded or broken wires at end of the connections. Number 4, severe kinking, crushing, cutting or unstranding. Number 5, corroded, cracked, bent, worn or improperly applied end connections. Now we will discuss how to apply lockout tag out procedure during maintenance. Number 1, review requirements for the individual crane. Number 2, integrate lockout and maintenance requirements. Number 3, ensure training in adequate for level of maintenance. Number 4, ensure written programs are established and reviewed. Number 5, carefully select lockout devices. Ask the manufacturer for recommendations. And number 6, don't necessarily assume devices are interchangeable between different types of cranes. After inspection, testing, and maintenance, let us discuss the types of lifts. Firstly, we will talk about routine lifts. Routine lifts can be number 1, equipment used at the same location. Number 2, same equipment used. Number 3, stable and known environment. Number 4, familiar, competent equipment operators. Number 5, known load and evaluated weight, shape and center of gravity. Number 6, standard rigging arrangement. Number 7, within the normal operating parameter of the crane. And number 8, lifting over non-sensitive areas. All these lifts shall be considered as routine lifts. In the diagram, you can easily identify different types of lifts. Those are routine lifts. What is a non-routine lift? Let us discuss the characteristics of non-routine lifts. Number 1, lifts made when the load weight is 75% or more of the rated capacity of the crane. Number 2, lifts that require the load to be lifted, swung, or placed out of the operator's view. Number 3, lifts made with more than one crane. Number 4, lifting using more than one hoist or technically difficult rigging arrangements. Number 5, hoisting personnel with the crane. Number 6, lifts involving hazardous material. For example, explosives, highly volatile substances. Number 7, lifts involving submerged loads. Number 8, lifts without the use of outriggers on rubbers. Number 9, lifts where the center of gravity could change. And number 10, any lift that crane operator or competent person believes should be critical. These all are the examples of the different forms or the characteristics of non-routine lifts. Those are dangerous and hazardous lifts. Let us discuss what are the critical lifts. Number 1, hoisted load approaching the crane's maximum capacity 75% to 95%. Number 2, lifts involving 2 or more cranes. Number 3, personnel being hoisted. Number 4, special hazards such as the lifts within an industrial complex or a plant. Number 5, cranes on floating bars and loads lifted close to the power lines. Number 6, lifts in the high winds or with other adverse environmental conditions. Those surrounds the lifting operation. And number 7, lifts made out of the view of the operator means blind pigs. Number 8, lifts involving non-routine or technically difficult rigging arrangements and any lift which the crane operator believes is critical. Number 9, lifts in congested areas, lifts involving turning or flipping the load where shock loading and a side loading may occur. Number 10, lifts where the load weight is not known, lifts in poor soil or unknown ground condition, and lifts involving unstable pieces. And number 11, lifting high value, unique, irreplaceable, hazardous, explosive, or radioactive loads. Remember, the definition of a critical lift is not as important as the planning necessary to safely perform the lift. These are the examples of non-routine lifts. You can easily identify the difference between routine and non-routine lifts. As per the classification of BS 7121-3, there are 3 lifts. Number 1, basic lift. Number 2, standard lift. And number 3, complex lift. Let us discuss one by one. Let us understand what is a basic lift. If the weight of the load can be simply established and there are no hazards or obstructions within the area of the operation, that shall be considered a basic lift. What is a standard lift? If there are hazards either within the working area of the crane or on the access route to the working area, but no multiple crane lifting is required. Normally, lifting of persons is a standard lift. What is a complex lift? If the lifting operation requires more than one crane to lift the load, or if the lift is at a location with exceptional hazards, for example, at a chemical plant, that lift shall be considered as a complex lift. Dear friends and fellows, you are watching Safety First. We are discussing lifting safety. This is video number 2. Let us discuss the physical and mental requirements for a crane operator. Number 1, no history of unsafe acts in the workplace. Number 2, have a mature and safe attitude at all times. Number 3, the ability to react quickly in an emergency. Number 4, drug and alcohol free during any lifting event. Number 5, good depth perception essential for load spotting. Number 6, good hearing and vision. Number 7, be thoroughly trained in all facets of the required lift. Number 8, Understand the requirements for all phases of the lift. And number 9, taking no medication that will interfere with the operation. Dear friends and fellows, let us know how to carry out safe lifting operation. Safe practices for operators are to test all hoist controls and brakes at the beginning of each shift. Never attempt to operate a crane or a hoist that is suspected to be unsafe. Always test brakes by a short lift to ensure control, and move loads only after being signaled by the designated and qualified signaler. Never carry loads over workers. Never carry loads past workers. They must yield right of way. Signalers must keep line of sight with the operator. Never allow unauthorized persons to operate cranes. Always lock out before maintenance or repairing cranes, and frequently inspect cranes exposed to adverse weather conditions. Always position the hook directly over the load before lifting the load off the ground. Document and maintain inspection records. Check warning devices and signals before each use. Signalers must watch the load. Operators must watch the signalers. Know your travel path in advance of the lift. Know where you are going to set the load down, and understand will the new location will support the weight. Let us discuss the safe and best practices for signalman or the signaler. Only one person is the designated signaler. Maintain line of sight with the operator. Ensure the operator acknowledges every signal. Stop the operation if comprehension is lost. Operators must watch the signals. Plan in advance where the load is going. Let us discuss how to leave the crane or how to park the hoist or the cranes safely. Number 1, raise all hooks to but not through limit switches. Number 2, place all controls in the off position. Number 3, place main power switch in the off position. Number 4, make a visual check for any dangerous condition. Number 5, report any defects immediately. Number 6, tag out defective equipment immediately. Number 7, report all cranes that are not in operation immediately. And number 8, always follow the manufacturer's recommendations and instructions. And that's it. Training session related to lifting safety part 2 is over now. This is mainly a procedural and pre-operational part about planning, about the duties and responsibilities of lifting the appointed person, about inspection, testing and maintenance, and lastly, the pre-operational checks and inspection strategies were discussed. In the upcoming videos, you will find mostly the operational part of lifting safety. For the time being, if you have any question or concern related to lifting safety part 2, please ask in the comment section. And don't forget to like, comment and share the video. Hope to see you soon with a new HSC tutorial. Till then, take care. Very good luck and Allah Hafiz.